This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Rocky.
Just to clarify, that's a reference to me basically just saying that we're kind of gearing up here. It feels like we're heading into a physical contest.
New year, new financial year. Rocky Balboa Thompson throwing the robe off, ready
to rumble.
Ready to rumble. Much better said, Adam.
Ready to rumble indeed, because this is a competition. The weekday show is so nice and friendly. The weekend show is not like that at all. We are each nominating what we think is the biggest story of the week and the most remarkable story and the sleeper story and then our favourite story. And obviously, to decide a winner, we need a judge, an adjudicator, who I sledged quite a lot in the Friday episode of Fear and Greed. And I'm starting to regret that now because I suspect that he may be swayed by things like that. Good morning, Adam Lang.
Good morning, Michael. And rest assured, no, I'm impervious. I'm still going to be very balanced, I hope, in my judgment.
Don't you think that Adam is sort of like the Don King of Fear and Greed?
With the hair?
Kind of the promoter, certainly the hair, definitely the promoter, the kind of man behind the scenes that you don't really trust. That guy. That's our Adam.
You suspect it's rigged from the beginning.
I trust you, Adam. And you know what? I received a note on Instagram via the Fear and Greed Instagram this week, because last week I had a win. It doesn't happen very often, but last week I won the battle. And I received this note from a listener by the name of William. And he said, well deserved, which I agree with, obviously. He said, it takes a lot of guts and character to overcome completely biased and unfair judging each week, and I'm happy to see it finally come in your favour. And so, you know what? It feels like the people are behind me.
Will, what have you done? What have you done?
Shall we jump into it?
Yeah, let's.
Sean, you go first. Biggest story of the week. What was it?
Oh, well, it has to be economics this week. Inflation fell during May thanks to falling fuel and holiday travel prices, but probably not enough to prevent the Reserve Bank from lifting interest rates again. The pace of inflation fell from 6.8% in April to 5.6% in May, according to the Bureau of Statistics. We know the Reserve Bank keeps an eye on this monthly figure, even though it's fairly new. If you exclude volatile items, which is pretty important, so take out stuff like petrol prices, holiday travel, annual inflation really only fell modestly from 6.5 to 6.4%. That's a little too high, I think, for the Reserve Bank. Then we had a surprise jump in retail sales figures. Now, pretty much everyone thinks that's a one-off, but if you're going to put that into the mixmaster of interest rate deliberating, that's going to be for a rate rise, but I don't think that's probably not a big one. We also had Treasurer Jim Chalmers saying that the budget surplus for the year ending yesterday, 30th of June, will be more than $4.2 billion. Quite significant, really, because it means our starting point for this financial year is much better than what we thought it would be. So that should make this year's deficit lower. We also had a drop in job vacancies. They're now down 10% over the year. That's actually a good thing because we have too many people employed. We heard that from Reserve Bank Deputy Governor Michelle Bullock. So where do we end up at this financial year? Well, probably still got one or two more rate rises in the offing. But last financial year, the benchmark rate and standard variable home loan rates jumped by about 3.25 percentage points, the fastest pace ever. So I think the economy really was the big story for the week. Michael.
Yes, good story. Mildly interesting. No, I jest.
That wasn't a good story at all.
Yes, indeed. Look, the biggest story for me this week was a very serious one. It was one on the global stage, and it kicked off really right back at the start of the week, pretty much a week ago now, and I'm talking about the aborted coup against Russian President Vladimir Putin by Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the mercenary Wagner group. Now, that's the group that's paid by Russia to lead a lot of the fighting in Ukraine. Prigozhin has been complaining about military leadership for a while now, about strategy, about resourcing, and it built up to the point that a week ago his troops were actually then kind of marching towards Moscow. They took one key city, made it within 120 miles of Moscow with very little resistance before the coup was called off. The advance was supposedly cancelled to avoid bloodshed, though there are reports that Prigozhin's family was threatened anyway. He was allowed to leave the country. He was actually allowed to go into exile in Belarus, and his troops could either join him or join the Russian army or go home. The reason why this is such a big story, it's a big story just because of all of those details, and the attention of the world's media was very firmly on the events of last weekend. But significantly, this might have been a tipping point for Russia and for Putin's leadership. The fact that a mutiny was able to get so far with so little resistance exposes huge cracks in Putin's grip on his country, and certainly his authority has been damaged. Even the fact that the leader of the coup was allowed to leave the country with all criminal charges dropped and live in a neighbouring country in exile says something. The US says that for its part it had nothing to do with the coup, but you can guarantee they would have been watching very, very closely. From a geopolitical perspective, this is a major story, one that's kind of gone eerily quiet in the days since the coup was called off. As for the economic significance, I know obviously, Adam, you're always looking for that. The conflict in Ukraine has such an enormous, and has had over the last kind of, 18 months, such an enormous impact on energy prices and the like, that anything that affects the conflict goes on to affect the global economy, and anything that weakens the leadership of Russia, which is one of the largest producers and exporters of oil and gas in the world, obviously a major story. And so just as the war in Ukraine was the biggest geopolitical story last year, the beginning of the end for Vladimir Putin that we saw in this last week may prove to be the biggest of not just of this week, but of 2023. That's it. It's quite simple. Really, no melodrama today, because I think the facts speak for itself.
You know, it's Adam. It's disappointing when Michael just does something like we expect so much from him, and then just comes and gives a story, and it's like, oh, right, okay, yeah, off we go.
We almost expect bugles, and when they don't play, it's like, oh.
That's it. That's nicely put.
Okay, how about this then?
Yeah.
15 years ago, this bloke,
here we go.
This bloke was called Putin's chef. So he started this, like, he came out of he had a few kind of criminal kind of convictions early in life, and then he started like a series of
very colourful character
misunderstandings.
Of hot dog stands and things. That's what he started, and then kind of that was successful, and then he bought some restaurants and bought some more restaurants, and then bought this one that floats up and down the river, and then Putin started going there, and Putin started taking world leaders there, and he took the Japanese leader there just after he came to power, and so then there's all these photos then of Prigozhin then serving food to dignitaries. How on earth does someone go from being kind of Putin's chef and going, "Can I suggest the linguine, sir?" to suddenly going, "We march on Moscow" 15 years later?
I think it'd be like caviar. I don't think it'd be linguine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get the details wrong, but you know,
a vodka chaser.
yes. Now,
Adam, over to you.
Thank you. So the criteria: topicality, both very topical; timeliness, both that; economic impact, both have economic impact. My subjective bias is also a criteria, and of course, melodrama. So on this one, I have to give it to Michael. Now, it's not just because of the theatre of it, because it's so huge. It's because the Russian invasion of Ukraine has brought about so much of this inflationary pressure through disruption to international supply chains. And indeed, that's where a lot of this inflation is coming from. So, Sean, your story of economics impacted by inflation still incredibly high, really, historically, 6.4%. That is still a massive battle. And I think you're right. Regrettably, the Reserve Bank probably hasn't finished lifting interest rates. So it's just a narrow miss. But on this one, I have to give it to the Russian coup.
So you're trying to tell me a major coup in one of the great nations of the world is going to beat a monthly inflation figure in Australia.
Yes.
You've changed, Adam.
You have changed. I'm putting up not happy. Not happy. Let's move on.
1-1. No, wait a second. That's not right.
You haven't changed, Michael.
I'm so used to Adam calling a draw on everything that I just went to default that it was 1-1. No, it's just 1-0. Shall we go to most remarkable?
Yes, your call. Go for it.
Me? Okay. Assessing kind of everything that's remarkable in the news this week. And really, I landed on one thing, and it is the allegations and revelations about the behaviour of politicians. And this week was a standout for that. Some extraordinary things that we learnt this week. I'll start with the allegations side of it. A whistleblower has claimed a consultancy sought to funnel money to former Liberal MP Stuart Robert in exchange for government services contracts. Government Services Minister Bill Shorten has now asked for advice about the claims. Now, importantly, Stuart Robert denies all of this. He says those allegations were made under privilege and it's an abuse of that privilege. But it's all very serious. The details of what is alleged, that a consulting company run by friends of Robert funneled money to him in return for him using his position, allegedly, as a minister in the Morrison government to help the consultancy and its clients win government service contracts. This may end up being a matter for the National Anti-Corruption Commission. We certainly haven't heard the last of it. I just thought, just even the few details that we heard this week of those allegations were quite remarkable on their own. Then we flip to the state level. And maybe we have heard the last of this one, the situation involving former New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian. This week we had the New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption, ICAC, finding that Berejiklian will not face criminal charges, recommending that she not face criminal charges, despite determining or ruling that she engaged in corrupt conduct and breached the public trust. The much anticipated release, everyone's been waiting for this for quite some time, of a 3-year review by ICAC found the then Premier should have disclosed her relationship, which ran for up to 5 years, with former Wagga Wagga Liberal MP Daryl Maguire. Post a conflict of interest, she failed to flag concerns about his conduct when it appeared he could be corrupt. She's going to avoid criminal charges. Maguire, who allegedly used his position to push property deals and other interests, has been referred for potential prosecution. But don't you just think this is, what a remarkable week for the behaviour of politicians? And a remarkable lack of flourish today. I realise I'm pretty much flourish-free.
You are sounding like me more and more.
I don't feel like me. And I'm actually disappointing myself. I'm sorry.
And the story's a bit dull too, like a revolution, political upheaval,
You've got nothing
stuff like
to work
that.
with.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the problem is that they're all too serious.
Yeah.
I can't kind of poke fun at any of these things.
Let me tell you about my story. June 30, yesterday. I want to talk about financial markets because it's kind of been quite a remarkable week/year. And June 30 is the only time you can really talk about the whole year, which I think is fair. Adam, this is going to be involve you as a judge being part of the audience and participating in this.
Oh, okay.
Can you give me, of the ASX 200, either of the worst performing stocks?
No.
Come on. You're a gambler. You eat pizza. Come on.
We know that Domino's had a tough
Domino's, yes, down 25% for the year. Only bettered, in a bad sense, by the Star Entertainment Group, down like 50%.
That was a crushing year.
Yeah. On the other side, we've had a couple of those pharmaceutical companies doing really well. WiseTech Global, good choice. That was one of the best for the year, certainly the best of the large caps. Some of the battery metal miners did really well. It's been quite remarkable. Now, do you have any idea over the financial year how much the ASX 200 is up or down? I won't ask you that. I won't put you on the spot because we know it's pretty flat. It's pretty flat. It's pretty flat the last 6 months. It's actually up 10% over the year. I was really surprised by that. I just didn't realise how well the market had done over the past 12 months. So when you get your superannuation returns, you should expect a pretty good jump in your super. We've also, this week, more specifically, just going over the S&P 500, that's pulled back quite a bit. We've had Jerome Powell come out this week at a central bankers get-together. Wouldn't that be fun? Just a gathering of central bankers. Christine Lagarde. Hey, Chrissy, how you going? Not bad, Jezza. Jerome Powell, things like that. They got together. Basically, the heads of Europe, UK, US central banks all said, we're going to lift rates more. Inflation's still a problem. No one was very happy about that. We still have Apple sitting just below $3 trillion market valuation. We've got Bitcoin doing well, winning on the back of big fund managers like Fidelity, looking at exchange-traded fund vehicles. Just quite a remarkable week/year, that's true, in financial markets, really dominated by interest rates, undoubtedly, but the actual market itself, equity market itself, has done remarkably well this year. So that's my most remarkable story, Adam.
Can I just say before you start, Adam, and I appreciate that you are an independent judge and that you're impervious to any kind of attempts to sway you.
However,
I'm just going to point out, not to you, Adam, but to the audience right now. Sean, you said this year 6 times during that story.
Big picture, man.
Yeah, but this is the most remarkable story of the week. So therefore, bit of quick maths on the fly. There are 52 weeks in the year, which means that whatever mark Adam is considering giving you should be divided by 52. And so you get 1.9% of whatever mark it is. Just wanted to point that out. And so you can do with that information whatever you want, Adam. I mean, you've got full independence.
Thank you,
Just
Michael.
make sure it's 152th, 52nd.
152th.
Yeah, very good. So,
and with that, I lost all credibility.
I actually do think it's remarkable that this year finishes this week with the ASX in such good shape. So I think that is remarkable amongst everything. So I think, Sean, you have to win this week. I would say I had to walk past or get over, rather, my frustration with the question marks over the behaviour of politicians this week. I found it awful. I think the ICAT query finally coming to a resolution is a good thing, but that it's taken 3 years to come to this conclusion is not good, and no one wins. I think the allegations about Stuart Robert are just remarkable. Also, within that story about the consultancy, there is a part of the evidence which relates to the whistleblower having been through an unhappy divorce with one of the principals of the firm. So it's got some absolute colour to that story. So it's a really good one. But Sean, I have to give this one to you for Remarkable Story of the Week.
Well deserved. Move on.
You can't say that your own win is well deserved.
It hasn't stopped you, Michael.
I've never claimed any of my wins have been well deserved. I leave that to listeners like William. Anyway, moving on. We'll come back in a moment with the sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we're looking for the sleeper story of the week. So a sleeper story is a story that's maybe not getting the attention that it deserves, or that is maybe going to become a bigger story further down the track. You go. I'm very hesitant heading into this. You can hear the hesitation in my voice. It's 1-1 at the moment. So let's see what you've got. What's your sleeper story this week?
Well, I have to give the background of the story before I tell you the sleeper part of it. So the background the background's the parliamentary inquiry this week, which recommended banning all advertisements for online gambling within 3 years. The final report of the inquiry into online gambling harm in Australia put forward 31 recommendations. It talked about the industry manipulating an impressionable and vulnerable audience. Now, one of the recommendations is to phase out online gambling ads over the next 3 years. Others include a national strategy for online gambling harm reduction, a public education campaign, a requirement for gamblers to have their identities verified before wagering, and a harm reduction levy. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was out talking about it. So this week it came, and it looks like we're going to kick off a ban, or some sort of restrictions at least. Take into account the gambling industry spends close to $300 million on advertising every year. Well, that the latest figure done by Nielsen was 2021. I'm sure it hasn't gone backwards from then. It was about 90 million 10 years earlier, 300 million plus now. Nielsen found an average of 948 gambling ads were broadcast daily on free-to-air TV in Victoria in 2021. That's about 3 times more than 5 years earlier. An average of 148 gambling ads were broadcast on free-to-air TV between 6 and 8:30 p.m. every weeknight during the primetime family viewing slot. Phenomenal. What happens? This is the sleeper part. What happens to the business models of media companies and all those organisations that rely on gaming ads? We know that retail's the biggest advertiser. Places like Harvey Norman is biggest advertisers. Finance is really big. But then it's entertainment and leisure, and much of that would be gambling ads. So this week, we had these recommendations suggest that we ban gambling ads. So the implications of that is the sleeper part of it. What's going to happen to the media companies? What's going to happen to all these organisations that rely on the money? I'm not giving a value judgment. I'm not saying that you got to keep them or not keep them. I'm just saying that there are huge ramifications of this that we haven't thought about. My sleeper story.
That's a good story.
Thank you.
I loathe the sleeper story category. I'm just going to be quite upfront. This category is not my friend.
But you can win, Michael.
You can.
I can. I've got the people behind me, and I feel like I can.
I think I can.
You know what? Actually, I do feel like I've got the people behind me, and I'm calling for change. I reckon. I say let's get rid of the sleeper story category because I hate it. I can't come up with a good story every week. I feel like maybe I've been infected by my first story and I'm calling for mutiny here. I reckon let's just let's ditch it and put in something better. Let's put in like...
Just give us the first sentence of your sleeper for this week and then we'll
before
decide.
Before you hoist the white flag.
Yeah, just give us the first 10 seconds of it.
Okay. Well, I do have a good one still.
Okay. Go.
I'm calling for kind of revolution after today's story. Obviously, let today's go and then we'll change it in the future. It's a sleeper story because it was probably a bit unexpected and it's going to have repercussions for plenty of Australian companies. It is all about APRA.
Okay, now I agree. Can the sleeper story.
At the mere mention of the entity.
Oh, God. Australia, the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority. Extremely fun.
Well, it is well, you know what? It might not be fun to you, Sean, but it's pretty significant to Medibank because Medibank's been told to hold an extra $250 million in regulatory capital as punishment for last year's cyber breach. Now, that breach was a big one. Obviously, it was huge. Millions of customers with medical details leaked online. It sparked a bunch of class action lawsuits. But now you've got Medibank having to hold an extra $250 million in capital. It sounds bigger when I say it like that, until it can complete a more detailed remediation plan. The fact that APRA has imposed this requirement sets a precedent for cyber breaches. And this is why this is a sleeper story, one that is so significant because it shows that the regulator won't tolerate problems and weaknesses in IT systems. Medibank can obviously, as we discussed through the week, handle a capital charge of that size, but other companies couldn't. A precedent's now been set. And it's going to scare a lot of Australian businesses. Can you imagine, just picture this for a second, just poor old, I don't know, Joe's fish market down at the local shops. Sitting down, checking the emails, going, I wonder what I've got here. And I open one from a friend. They think it's a friend. It's a Nigerian kind of friend, claiming to be an old cousin. Click on a link. Suddenly their systems are frozen. Details are kind of leaked online. And poor old Joe's fish market has to come up with $250 million in regulatory capital. That's a lot of salmon, a lot of oysters that he's going to have to sell to fund that. Clearly, I am being facetious with this and just trying to...
Fish-thecious.
Oh, dear Lord. Adam, that was...
confirming my role as a dad joke.
That was terrible. But but please, sit in judgment of me.
Now?
Is that it?
Yeah, that's all I've got. Like this is why I'm calling for a revolution.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, Sean wins this one.
I don't understand why.
So the online gambling industry is enormous and it's incredibly pervasive. It is observed internationally that Australia, it is far more apparent here than in many other parts of the world. And that is apparent through advertising. So I think it is regarded as out of control in terms of its exposure. And that's where I think this parliamentary inquiry is going. So, Sean, I do think this is massive. It's massive for those companies. It's massive for their partners, such as media companies. And so I do think this is a great sleeper story. You win for sleeper story of the week.
Adam's always been an ad man. I was very confident on that one, no matter what you threw up, Michael. And the APRA one was not much of a competition. Do you know what I reckon we should do next week? We should mix it up. And I think I should adjudicate you two.
Game on.
Excellent. Michael, come up with your favourite story of the week.
Oh, I feel like I've got. Okay, you know what? I've got one shot left here, and I'm going to make it a good one. It is hard to go past Taylor Swift saving the Australian economy. Why are you laughing?
Go on.
Good. Gosh, I feel like the underdog here. You have to feel for Swift fans this week, I think, and the families of Swift fans and the parents of them, because it's been 6 long years since her last stadium tour in Australia, and on this next tour that's taking place kind of early next year, I think it's February, March or so. And this is the problem: if you get something wrong about Taylor Swift, I'm pretty sure people will notice. But it's the only Pacific stops that she's making are Tokyo and Singapore and Sydney and Melbourne. That's it. There's no Brisbane, no Perth, nothing at all in New Zealand. So that the pressure, the immense pressure for Swifties, I looked that up. That is apparently what Taylor Swift fans are called. To get those tickets to those shows is quite extraordinary. And they need a fair bit of cash to do it as well. I mean, the nosebleed kind of seats, $80, but up to $380, VIP packages, including merchandise, going up to $1,250. So there's a fair bit of money kind of going into, and these are big kind of stadium shows. When tickets went on sale this week, fans were just in an absolute frenzy. Of course, the Ticketek site doesn't respond well to frenzies, and there were people kind of left waiting for hours and hours and hours. So from a business perspective, can you imagine the lack of productivity in workplaces this week? They could release these tickets on the weekend, couldn't they? Or they could release them at 8 o'clock at night when it's not going to actually impact on productivity in workplaces. But anyway, that's just me just being an ideas man. Despite that hit to productivity, Taylor Swift's visit should still see a solid economic injection for Australia. You've got hotels already being booked and Air New Zealand putting on extra flights to bring those unfortunate Kiwis over, and they'll all be spending plenty of money here. So if we do end up in a recession later this year, we should have a swift recovery.
Oh, nice.
Did you like that?
In every sense, yeah.
Did you like that one?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I've just redeemed myself.
Do you? From the lack of effort in the sleeper story, Jimmy.
It wasn't a lack of effort. I tell you, the worst part is that I put a lot of effort into that, which is actually quite embarrassing to say. A lot of effort went into it, and that was the result. Isn't that terrible?
Terrible. My favourite story for the week was all about the labour shortage. But it's a labour shortage in the dairy industry, and we're talking about cows. There's been a 9% drop in the volume of milk produced by dairy farmers in Australia over the past... Do you mind not sighing so loudly?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's an involuntary reaction when you start talking sometimes. It's just...
You're being jeered, Sean. Carry on. Stay strong.
I will. So we've had about 700 million litres less milk produced over the past couple of years. Still plenty of competition out there. So we have all the home brands, Woolies and Coles. You've got Dairy Farmers, Big M, Farmers Union. They're all bigger cheese organisations, all wanting the milk. And you've got input costs rising for farmers, and they can charge more. So suddenly I've noticed in the supermarket, I'm paying $3.20 for 2 litres of milk. Not that long ago, we were paying $2 for 2 litres of milk. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing for the farmers, as long as the farmers get the money. But it's just that these cows are in short supply. There's also a shortage of people to milk them, but I think that's quite funny. I'd never really thought about the supply of cows triggering a labour shortage. So that's why that's my favourite story of the week. No flourish, just interesting.
Was it? No, it was. It was. I'm sorry. No, I'm getting scrappy. I'm getting scrappy towards the end.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, I like Sean's story.
Oh, thank you.
But I like Michael's story more. I think Taylor Swift, if a single pop star can help us get out of recession or avoid it, that's just fantastic. So good luck to all those people who want to get tickets. I hope you can get them. Michael wins this one. So that's 2 stories apiece.
Goodness me. And now we got to go to the points and got to remember to factor in that 152th division for whichever category it was. So let's see how you go.
Michael, 89 points.
I feel like the sleeper story might have hurt me a little bit.
Sean, 91 points.
Oh, what?
Sorry, that sleeper story, you deserve to lose the whole show.
Yeah, it could have been enough to bring you down.
Hang on. Can we just pause for 1 second?
Why?
Here we go. Yeah, go on.
Okay, we heard why Sean's was great. And Sean's was good. But why was mine so bad?
Because of the way you told it.
Yeah, I think the The manner in which it was delivered.
The idea that the guy selling fish had to sell extra salmon to make $250 million, I thought you were taking the piss out of it. And I don't think Adam doesn't respect that.
No. Thinking of the fish shop owners around the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of fish shop owners out there not real happy with you at the moment, Michael.
It's not easy to handle halibut, perch, salmon.
Oh, my God.
The halibut.
Think of those cold hands.
Now I'm a pescatarian. I've gotten quite into the fish types and not a fan of barramundi, big fan of snapper.
Do you remember the life of Brian Shawn? The fellow who was being punished. His sinful line was, that piece of halibut was good enough for Jehovah.
Oh, sorry, Michael, you're here. I forgot.
Well, I'm trying to mount a bloody mutiny, and it's just you two are getting distracted talking about fish types. Goodness me.
Shawn wins.
Shawn does win. Congratulations, Shawn. Next week is going to be a cracker. I'm going to bring my A game.
Good.
We look forward to it.
Even both of you sound like that won't happen. Anyway, thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you, Michael.
And well done, and thank you, Shawn.
Thanks, Rocky.
Well, it feels like I haven't really earned the title now.
You were Rocky Balboa in the first movie. Second movie, he comes back and wins that, so it's okay.
Oh, thanks. All right. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn. Join us on Instagram, where you can join my revolution, and Twitter and Facebook as well. I'm Michael Thompson. That was Fear and Greed. Have a great weekend.